The story begins in Melbourne, Australia, with a young man named Matthew David Graham. From the outside, Matthew seemed like an ordinary teenager. He was intelligent, introverted, and deeply obsessed with computers from a young age. He spent hours locked in his room, rarely interacting with anyone. But inside that room, behind the glow of a screen, he was building an identity that would eventually become infamous in the darkest corners of the internet. By the time he turned 18, Matthew had fully immersed himself in the dark web, a hidden part of the internet that can't be accessed through normal browsers. Here, anonymity reigns. It's a place where drug markets, hitmen for hire, and the most disturbing forms of illegal content exist far away from the eyes of law enforcement, or so many users believed. Matthew adopted the online alias Lux, and he didn't just browse the dark web. He became one of its most active predators. Lux wasn't interested in drugs or hacking. His obsession was far darker. He began creating and running multiple forums focused on child exploitation, some of which gained thousands of members from around the world. What shocked investigators later was that he was not just a passive observer. He actively encouraged and guided others in the production and distribution of this content. Lux created forums like Hurt2theCore, PedoEmpire, and Love Zone, where he allowed only the most extreme and abusive content to be shared. He had a twisted set of rules. Users had to constantly post new content to stay in the forum, and if they failed, they were banned. He believed in pushing people further into criminal behavior, and he justified it all as free speech, a grotesque excuse to mask deep-rooted sadism. Law enforcement around the world was already aware that such forums existed, but finding the people behind them was incredibly difficult. On the dark web, users hide behind layers of encryption and fake identities. However, in 2014, something changed. A disturbing video surfaced that originated from one of Lux's forums. It showed the abuse of a toddler, a video so graphic and horrifying that even hardened investigators struggled to watch it. The video was shared widely in the pedophile networks, and authorities quickly made it their mission to track down the source. The Australian Federal Police, AFP, along with international cybercrime units, began digging. They had little to work with, just usernames, encryption trails, and forum activity. But they noticed something unusual about Lux. Despite being extremely careful online, he sometimes logged in from the same locations. And once he slipped. A minor configuration mistake in his connection gave away part of his real IP address. It was the beginning of his unraveling. Behind the alias Lux, they traced the location back to a quiet home in Melbourne, to the bedroom of 19-year-old Matthew David Graham. On the surface, he didn't look like a criminal mastermind. But on his computer, investigators found massive amounts of encrypted data, forum logs, and videos, thousands of images and videos of child abuse, many of which were exclusive to his platforms. What disturbed the police even more was how emotionless and calculated Matthew was. He didn't drink, didn't party, and had no real-life friends. His entire existence revolved around these forums. He viewed everything like a game. In chats, He bragged about manipulating people into creating new content. He even coached parents on how to abuse their own children and record it for him. In court, investigators revealed that Graham had administered several forums that accounted for over 70% of the most extreme child abuse content circulating on the dark web at that time. One of his forums had more than 45,000 members. He had been responsible for over 2 million forum messages. And the most horrifying part, many of the victims were under 3 years old. His online behavior showed no remorse. He once wrote, "Hurting babies is part of who I am. I know it's sick, but I'm just being honest." Public reaction in Australia was one of shock and disgust. The press called him the Australian face of the dark web. But Graham didn't seem fazed. In custody, he maintained a cold demeanor. He even tried to continue accessing the dark web from prison. Eventually, in 2015, he was convicted on multiple charges of producing and distributing child abuse material. In total, he was sentenced to over 35 years in prison with a non-parole period of 22 years. At the time of sentencing, the judge said, "You have caused trauma not just to the victims, but to the officers who had to view your material. Your crimes are among the worst this court has ever seen." The Lux case became a landmark in cybercrime investigation. It showed that no matter how deep into the dark web someone hides, even the most careful predators leave digital footprints. It also exposed the chilling reality of how technology can be weaponized in the hands of someone intelligent but evil. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of the case was the unknown number of victims. Many of the children in the videos Graham shared have never been identified. Some were abused by their own family members, manipulated by online predators Graham had recruited. Others were trafficked, filmed, and left in anonymity. Their pain is still largely undocumented. Following the arrest, multiple dark web forums went offline, and new international task forces were created specifically to monitor and take down similar platforms. The case sparked debates about encryption, online privacy, and how to balance freedom of speech with public safety in the digital age. Matthew David Graham's story is a grim reminder of how easily evil can hide behind a screen. He was not a violent man in the physical world, but he orchestrated violence far worse than most street criminals. And he did it all with a keyboard. Today, while he sits behind bars, many still consider him one of the most dangerous cyber criminals in Australia's history. His case continues to be used in law enforcement training programs around the world, not just as a warning about the dangers of the dark web, but as a lesson in how small digital clues can eventually bring justice to even the most hidden of monsters.